Get him inside.
What happened?
Got hit again. Squatters off the highway. We've got to get some men together, go after them.
Don't look at me, it ain't my problem.
They've got Manny.
You sent Manny on a supply run.
I just run the camp, Deke. I don't tell folks how to live their lives.
Go to hell, Cope!
Oh! Out of the way! Oh! Hey, man!
Let's do this. Yeah? You want some of this?
Yeah!
That's Manny's bike. Yeah, this way. Ugh.
Cigarette. What the hell is wrong? Why do you have? You always have a bad attitude. You know?
I have a bad attitude. I have
You have a bad attitude.
I could even do a burger.
Just don't talk.
Oh, yes, better if we just don't.
Yo, where you at, man?
Hey, shut the hell up. Shh, make it too goddamn.
He's not being that loud. You shut the hell up.
Thank you. You shut up.
Okay, shh. I want all of you to shut the hell up. What is your problem?
Oh, shh. There's something out there.
Just a
Stop! God! No, my leg! Get it off! Drop him! Now! Or I'll kill him!
Do it. I'm not here for him. I'm here for you. Oh, God.
Take.
Hi, Manny.
Hey. So, do it.
Yeah, you do. Oh, come on. I wasn't gonna let him kill you. Besides, who the hell else around here knows how to rebuild a carburetor? Okay. Just back up. Nice and slow. Don't make a sound.
When the player learns these, he's going to be able to use that kind of context as one of he's going to play that as part of his strategy for how he approaches any encounter.
Gotcha.
But definitely sound, right? Because like you saw in the media showcase demo, Deacon, put down this bear trap and then kind of snuck off.
Right.
And in our alternate path demo, he doesn't do that. So he actually kind of goes around and watches what happens when this marauder goes into the bear trap. And you hear this gunshot on the media showcase demo. If you look at our alternate path footage, you'll see that one of the marauders actually shoots the other marauder in the head because he's making too much noise.
Oh, wow.
Right? So yeah, so it's a pretty harsh world, but that sound traveled, and sound is something that can be really, really dangerous.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I did notice once the bear trap was down and the guy stepped in it, you saw the freakers running.
Yeah.
It's like they heard it screaming. He heard them screaming.
This is looking good. I didn't see all of this footage. I was kind of a little distracted last night during the showcase, but one of the things I really like about this game is it's, we see a lot of open world games out there. It's certainly like a popular genre, but
right.
This one, the feel of it is different. It feels more improvisational. I think is the word I'm going for.
Absolutely, our crafting system. I mean, it's really inspired by kind of the do-it-yourself mentality, where we all feel thrilled when we make a repair to our car or our house with duct tape and a couple of loose screws, and we feel really good about it. That's Deacon. He's making use of everything he can find in the environment, and they have to scavenge and search for things and employ them in really clever ways.
And he has to do it.
He has to do it to survive.
So like you see right here, this is the same clothesline that Deacon ran into, and in this demo, the runners aren't chasing him. So basically, he has the opportunity to see the ambush before it happens, goes around it, comes up behind them, and takes those guys out from behind.
Right.
So that's to your point.
And then he strangles them with their own clothesline too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So he makes use of the whole buffalo.
And it's a dynamic event that can happen. You can be out in the world doing a job or a mission, and then suddenly you've got marauders that are ambushing you on the highway, and it's a dynamic event. There's no way to predict when it's going to happen. You just got to pay attention.
Well, is there more than just like a clothesline in the middle? Do they find more ways to ambush you?
Yeah,
it's a dangerous world, and it's something where the horde is dangerous, freakers are dangerous, but so too are humans because they're cunning and clever, and they too are using everything they can find to employ against their enemies. And let's just say clothesline is one of many things. We'll get into it at a later date.
Okay.
Now tell me a little bit about, maybe a little bit of the backstory about why these freakers are being hung up like this. Is that like a defense mechanism? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what they do is we call it the meat wall. And what they'll do is, like in this case, they have a bear trap under this dead freaker corpse. And what they'll do is they'll put a trap under it, and then those other freakers are attracted to the meat. They're all hungry all the time. That's what happens, evidently, if you become a freaker. But they hang up the meat walls again. It's kind of like a wall to protect the encampment. So you can always tell when you're coming close to a marauder camp because you'll run into these kinds of traps.
Yeah, they had all kinds of defenses too. I mean, the first thing Deacon did was trip over that little thing in the tin cans. And that's what drew the first guy out, which is why he'd think on his toes, scramble for a bush, and then wait, and then kill the guy when he came by.
Right.
And again, in the alternate path that we're showing, it's something where if the players are thoughtful and if they take time, they don't just rush into things, they're going to be able to employ a different analysis of the terrain. They're going to be able to look for these things and see them. And that's how he sees a clothesline. And when the players are careful and cautious and assume the world's dangerous, they can turn the tables on the bad guys using the same tools that they're using against the player against them.
Yeah, so like what you're seeing now is part of the alternate path. Changed up the time of day, changed up the weather.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't remember this from the show.
Exactly, because it's colder now, more freakers are coming out, so freakers are stronger when it's cold out. So you really got to be careful when it's snowing. Also, The bike handles differently. It's like if you'd seen the earlier part when Deacon's trying to ride his bike through the snow, it's very, very different.
Oh, this is really cool. I didn't realize. Interesting. So here's your meat wall, right? The meat wall there.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty smart move, if I'm honest.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, look at this, a beautiful looking game too. And I know you guys are digging into the PS4 Pro as well as you make this title. This is one that's been shown off a number of times.
Right.
I know you have HDR. Tell me a little bit about like working with PS4 Pro as you develop the game.
Well, the biggest thing is just the resolution. So dynamic 4K, and if you get a chance to see this thing on a 4K monitor and HDR.
Oh yeah.
You know, and HDR is honestly to me the most impressive thing because it really sort of simulates what the human eye can see. The gamut of colors is just amazing. So watching it in 4K HDR is something you have to do.
It's beautiful enough without 4K, and then you add that to the mix, and it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Right. You know, one thing that stands out to me about Days Gone, you know, amongst the other undead games out there, is that you can get so many zombies on the screen in this thing, or freakers on the screen at once. So can you tell us a little bit about how you guys went about making that happen and just getting so many freakers on the screen at one time? Was that a technical feat for you guys?
Oh, absolutely. So we have a really, really talented team. Some of our engineers and artists and designers and audio and everything, but I think we have we have this one engineer that's literally I've been at Sony Bend for 20 years. Chris has been there like 26 years.
Wow.
And this other engineer has been there like 23 years or something. And he does all of our physics. And he really, really, really worked hard to make sure that we could have as many freakers on the screen as we can. And last year's demo was no joke.
Right.
We had 300 active on screen at once.
Wow.
And the overall horde for the sawmill, we were managing something like, how many did you say it was?
Killed 1,000.
It was 1,000 freakers.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then 300 more showed up at the end too. So.
Yeah. So it's pretty impressive. So we're even impressed by it.
What do you do when you're confronted by that many freakers and in this game? I mean, we saw last year's demo. I'm not sure that ended so well.
Didn't
seemed like a pretty desperate ending.
Yeah.
But what do you do? What could be an effective technique for getting out of that?
Weaponize them, like we saw in the demo,
them, right?
Where so that wasn't actually a horde; it was a swarm, a smaller.
Okay.
One in this E3's demos.
Yeah, in this year's E3 demo. So it's something where you can even weaponize the larger horde as well. But it's something where it's a threat to you. But if you're smart and you don't just rush into everything, you can stop and contemplate how you can utilize every weapon and every enemy and the environment against each other as part of your tool set.
And I think the short answer is until you have progressed, because this it's like taking on a swarm is something you can probably do pretty early in the game. Yeah. The horde encounters are probably later in the game, and you just do what Deacon did last year.
The shortest answer is run. When you
run. Get up to a tall place. That won't save you, but it might buy you a few seconds.
Yep.
Well, you saw in the demo at the showcase that the Deacon looks over this fence and he sees a horde down there.
Right.
Probably that's not the smartest thing to do. Would be to run down there.
Yeah.
And mess with them. You just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of hopeless endings, there was a freaked out bear.
Oh yeah. I was going to go into that.
Yeah. So what other types of creatures are we going to see in that state?
Well, last year we saw the horde,
right.
We saw swarmers, we saw the newts, which are adolescents when they were infected. We saw regular wolves, right? This year we're showing the rager bear, that's what we call it, is the rager bear. We saw runners, so runners are infected wolves. And those are the ones that, Deacon kind of ran across, then gnawing on somebody's corpse, and then one of them chased him. And the thing about runners is they can outrun your bike. And if they catch up to you, they will knock you from your bike. So it's another example of dynamic events that happen in the world that make the world dangerous all the time.
Someone asked me once if I remembered how it all went down, as if it happened so long ago that anyone could forget. So yeah, I remember. I remember when our homes and our towns turned into graveyards. When the wilderness became our only hope for survival. I remember when the planes fell out of the skies. When the trains stopped running. When the turbines shut down and the world went dark. I remember when they put up the razor wire like it was gonna stop anything. When the feds ran out of body bags.
Rope.
And some of us sort of lost our minds.
I think it's dead.
Some lost more than that. Much more. I remember when we lived by a code, when brotherhood meant something, and living meant more than surviving.
Goddamn liar!
So yeah, I remember how it all went down. I don't give a damn about any of that. You know what I remember most? Riding the open road. The smell of your hair. The touch of your skin. I remember you. But those days are gone. Now I'm a drifter. A bounty hunter. A mercenary. And for me, the broken road is all that's left.
His bike's down. All right, Two Dog, where the hell are you? Go on. Get out of here. Get out. Well, that ain't him. All right, let's see. Yep. I could use that. Oh, shit. Two Dog. Two Dog! Damn it! Stop, Two Dog!
Look around, brother! You know how this is gonna end. Where you at?
Oh, shit. Come on!
Come here! Come on! Come on!
You guys, this is a very exciting time because we showed a little bit of footage from Days Gone running on PlayStation 4 Pro hardware. Tell me a little bit about what the pro hardware not only means to you as a developer, but also kind of to specifically the project that you guys have been working on.
Well, for Days Gone, it's really exciting working with the PS4 Pro. What it's really providing us now is a visual clarity that we haven't been able to see before. It's just super astounding. So the details of the environment really pop now. The character details, the color, the vibrancy of it. It's just amazing. And when we first got it up and running and put it out in front of the team, it was a game changer. It was a jaw-dropping experience.
Jaws were on the floor.
Yeah.
And then tell me a little bit about the specific technologies of the PS4 Pro that you guys feel like have been most beneficial to you as a studio.
Well, I mean, the resolution, increase in resolution has been that was the first step, getting that up and running, and that was great. And again, it's like our character artist came in and saw Deacon and actually could see all the stitching detail.
Tears running down their face.
In the clothing and everything. So all that detail that they had been working on is now, absolutely
That's amazing.
Stunning.
So it's not even on a technical side, but it's also like, these are the kind of technologies that also, from an artistic perspective, put that stuff out there more in front of the player as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and it's an open world environment, so we have a lot of scenes where you're going into dark interiors to bright exteriors. So trying to manage that exposure and lighting, on a SDR TV, regular TV is pretty tough. We do a lot of work to make that feel right.
Sure.
But then when we put HDR in, all of that just becomes natural. It's like you're looking out the window of your office, which in our case in Bend is what you see in the game.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this game just based on your office and the surrounding environment? I mean, it's gorgeous.
Some of it, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And I think that's actually the point you made about looking out of a window. I think that's one of the best ways to illustrate what HDR can do, is sort of that ability to more naturally show off to the player like what the human eye can see, right?
Yeah.
Because, anytime you try and take a picture and you're like, you can either get the window or you can get what's, behind the window.
Yeah.
But here, you kind of, when you guys are panning that camera by, and it's just incredible, the lighting effects. I mean, what is that like for, teams like your lighting team, your art team? I mean, is that like just like open up new tools for them to use when it comes to game development?
It really does, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and again, our goal from the beginning was to have, a visual realism in the environment. That we've always been striving for. So once we turn on HDR, the colors that the artists have been putting a lot of work in and trying to balance all that stuff all just naturally comes out.
Yeah. And now, what about in terms of, obviously, the pro hardware is a little more powerful. People and developers are able to achieve, more stable, performance.
Right.
Is that must be particularly pertinent in an open world game, because open world games very demanding. Your game is, may I say, looking very nice. So that, of course, is a strain on the hardware. But with the pro hardware, I mean, suddenly you guys can play around a little bit more. I mean, is that of benefit to your team as well?
It is a benefit. I mean, and even for gamers that haven't upgraded to 4K yet, they're still going to get a huge benefit, visual benefit. Even
that's an important point.
It is, because in 1080p, now on PS4 Pro looks amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the game then. If someone's just, let's say they just tuned in. Right. This is the first time they've ever seen Days Gone. Give me the full summary on what players can expect here.
So Days Gone, it's an open world game. It's about Deacon St. John.
This handsome fella right here.
Yes, exactly. He's a drifter bounty hunter. It's 2 years after a global pandemic that's wiped out the world. And his background, he comes from MC, so he's rough and tough as it is and been through a lot, but now he's going through a lot more. The world is super dangerous, and it's just sort of following his journey.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys first revealed this at E3 this year, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
And I mean, that must have been a spectacular feling for you guys to have worked on something for so long and then you finally get to show it off, right?
It was awesome.
Now, in terms of dealing with kind of an open world, obviously, this gentleman is using a motorcycle to get around. I mean, that must play a role in the game design that you guys are putting together.
It absolutely does. Again, this is 2 years after everything went wrong.
Went sour.
Yeah.
Went real
really,
south.
really bad. So, the roads have deteriorated. You know, being able to get around and be very maneuverable. Deacon, being a biker on a bike, can get around in that environment much, much easier.
Does that mean that the way that your team sort of lays out the world, like building things, I mean, does that actually change the way that they're creating environmental design? I mean, does the
absolutely.
Transportation informs that back and forth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All that's taken into account.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, does that mean that if your gentleman here, Deacon, can get around on a motorcycle, do you guys suddenly have to build, like, start to get bigger and bigger? Because, I mean, you're dealing with fast transportation here.
Right.
I mean, how do you take that into account?
I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, coming up with interesting environments that he has to traverse, but the bike also plays a big part in setting up for whatever mission he's about to take on, right? So it's about carrying supplies with him, but also being very nimble. You know, being able to get out of a situation.
It's your mobile HQ.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the combat. Actually, we're kind of seeing on the screen here that using the Molotov cocktails, which of course look great on the Pro hardware.
Yeah.
But a little bit about the combat design in Days Gone. I mean, how is Days Gone separate from other, you know, third-person open-world games?
Well, again, we're paying a special attention to the environment. You know, we're calling it sort of this sandbox combat. So it's really up to the player looking at the environment, seeing how he can take advantage of it, craft specific weapons based on what's around him, and bring those kind of weapons into the battle with them. So there's a lot of preparation. You know, to take into account, especially when you're going up against, as you see, the Horde.
Do you feel like hoarders and people that like to collect stuff are going to get a kick out of this?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Just scavenging through the environment. I mean, there must be a survival element to this game as well, considering that, as we have discussed, the world has kind of fallen to pieces.
Yes,
and Deacon has to make do with what he's got.
Yep.
Does that inform your guys' design in terms of weapons, items, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a natural progression, you know, as you progress through the story. And
anything you can share with us in terms
of?
We're so close.
I know, so close.
Okay, well, before we wrap up, I kind of want to know, in terms of you as a developer, you know, what do you take away from the PS4 Pro hardware, and what do you feel like has been really beneficial to you guys as a team?
It really has. I mean, it's...
Anything in particular, like any specific elements that you feel like you guys were like, wow, this was it?
When we got HDR running, that was
the turning point?
That was the moment.
Okay.
It really was a game changer.
All right, excellent.
Tell me, I mean, is this sort of a reflection of like this popular love of like zombie culture? I mean, is that how you guys are coming at this?
No, it couldn't be further from the truth. So, you know, first and foremost, we're a big fan of open world games.
Yeah.
So what we really wanted to do was kind of create a game that was set in an open world, a dangerous open world. And to do that, we brainstormed a lot of ideas about, what would make riding a bike through the high desert of the Pacific Northwest just super, super dangerous. And one of the, we're big fans of like World War Z.
Yeah.
We like the idea of having a lot of enemies on the screen.
Yep.
That's one of the things that, the power of the PS4 allows us to do.
Yep.
So, we that's kind of like how all this stuff kind of came together. So first thing I want to say is they're not zombies. Right.
Thank you for setting me straight.
Yes, they're freakers, and and it's like, okay, yeah, people looking at the demo last night probably are like, okay, yeah, it's another zombie game. Biggest difference is our freakers are alive, right? So it's an infection. If depending on how old you were when you were infected, it alters you in a different way.
And so, more importantly, they're alive in that they have needs and rules, and
they
have a cycle that they live by, and that really informs a lot of the open world sandbox gameplay. The way that they understanding how they behave and what they need.
Yeah,
and
so different behaviors. Right? Yeah. So like in the demo, you saw Deacon came across a newt. So newts are adolescents when they were infected, and they're opportunistic. They run away from you unless they feel like they can get the jump on you, or if your health is down, then they'll be you have to kind of watch the rooftops. So that they're one type, the Horde is another type, and there's several more in the game.
Fascinating. Yeah, you guys really are I think, trying to kind of re-examine some of these sort of tropes that we see out there a lot. Bring something new and fresh. That's awesome. Another thing that really caught my eye, and we're seeing some great footage here. Game is a looker, no doubt about it. I'm really interested in sort of the world and the protagonists themselves. What can you tell me about the protagonists?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, what we really wanted to do was tell a story the kind of story that we like to enjoy. So, we love all kinds of, things like Sons of Anarchy. We were fans of that. And, that kind of protagonist, what he represents to us is brotherhood, and camaraderie and just loyalty. So, that kind of brought to it, but also the skill set, right? Like, how, the kinds of things that a biker would know how to do, like riding the bike.
We're seeing some of that right now, actually.
The love of the open road. I mean, that's a huge part of the game.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to settle down in the encampments. He refuses to, because the MC's all gone except for, you saw in the trailer, he's got like one friend left. And just, his ability to like stay alive.
Yeah, and it's not a game about bike culture or about a biker gang. It's about a guy who was a biker before everything fell apart. And he's struggling to fit into this new world. But that skill set he had, that badass skill set, kind of has a purpose. Here, it's got a value as a bounty hunter and as a mercenary. There's a lot of people in this world who need things. They need vengeance. And he's just the guy to help deliver it for them. Yeah. So in being the outsider, it's not about him being a biker so much as somebody who's not... He's on the outside trying to understand where he fits, on the inside and how he fits there and the conflict that breeds and the way that it motivates a lot of his jobs and missions.
And you can see that in the trailer, right? So, the demo is action-packed. It's got these, huge, vast numbers of freakers that you're fighting. But in the trailer, I hope it kind of came across that what we're trying to do is tell a much more sort of human story. So, So Deacon has, he feels loss, he feels regret, not just everything that happens in the world, but deep personal loss as well. And, the story is really about what happened to him, how did he become this way, and what does his future hold?
So tell me a little bit about the environment that we're exploring. I mean, the game is set in the Pacific Northwest, if I'm not mistaken. Where you guys are from,
Yeah, so Bend, Oregon. And our fictional town is Farewell, Oregon, and the original name for Bend was, in like 1900, was Farewell Bend, because that's where the Oregon Trail kind of split.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so, but when you think of Pacific Northwest, you think of Seattle, rain, forests, and what most people don't know is that 80% of Oregon is actually high desert.
I did not know that.
It's on the other side of the Cascade Range, and same thing with Washington, Northern California. It's all very, very harsh environment because we're high elevation and a lot of different kinds of environments. Everything you saw in the trailer is real. You can ride your bike through those areas, you can explore, you have dense forests, you have desert areas, you have lava tube caves, all created by sort of volcanic activity over the last million years.
Yeah, it's not all hipsters and exotic donuts.
I'm
Starbucks coffee.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that. That would be maybe the worst apocalypse of all. So here we are, we're seeing a horde. I can only imagine that it's got to be a real technical struggle to animate these many characters on screen at once.
Oh, and we have,
look at that.
We have a studio of about 100 people and just some really, really talented engineers who were able to work, using the power of the Unreal Engine and a lot of our own code. Because every single one of those guys is real. It's not like it's not like we have a few active guys in the front of the horde.
Sprites kind of bobbing
it's like
around.
Every single one of those guys. And when you watch,
look at that.
When you watch Jeff play the demo last night, he played it one way. You could literally play this demo any way you want.
Yeah. You're going to see me kind of go inside the building here. You could go left, you could go right, you could go straight. You could just take your chances anyway.
This is awesome. And I mean, again, I've just never seen such a quantity of creatures. They look great too, but it's very. That's very disconcerting getting that vision. I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. It's very upsetting. So very, very cool.
Early on in the game, you run for your life.
Yeah,
yes.
I can imagine. And a little earlier, we saw one of those newts you were talking about.
Yeah.
Super creepy. Geez, this is really intense here. I wasn't able to see every second during the press conference, so this is fun for me to get a closer look. Bam! Good stuff, good stuff. So, obviously, Deacon is a former biker. He's a biker. How will the bikes impact the gameplay? I mean, other than the ability to ride.
It's an important character and tool for the player. It's his bike. He doesn't have throwaway bikes. It's his ride. It's his steed, and he can upgrade it and improve it and make it something that helps him be more capable in the field and carry things out of the field. So. It's
awesome.
It was part of his life before, and it's part of his personality now. It's just a different style bike with a different purpose.
Yeah, because a lot of open world games, basically vehicles are disposable. You just grab one, you ride or whatever. That's not the way our game works because number one, the roads are broken, right? So we have bridges are out, and you do a lot of off-roading. So you can't get cars around the world very easily. So there are other vehicles in the game. But like Jeff was saying, it's like the bike is almost like another character. And
like the trusty steed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Are you going to be able to upgrade or maintain the bike in various ways? Or
Yeah, we're not going into a ton of detail about that, but yeah, one of the things we really sort of wanted to do was ground the game.
Yeah.
So it's very realistic. We didn't want it to be kind of a chore for the player, but yeah, there's definitely some aspects of, what you would expect to, if you were thinking to yourself, what would I do in a post-apocalyptic world where everything's trying to kill me? We kind of wanted to try to deliver on that.
That's awesome. So we're still seeing this horde, and this is really an awesome set piece. And you were talking a little bit about alternate paths. I'm told that there are, there's traps, there's gadgets, there's crafting. Tell me a little bit about how that factors in here to Days Gone.
Well, so, Deacon, he's kind of an everyman, and what do we like? We like to duct tape stuff together and feel like heroes, right?
Yeah.
We like to solve problems with duct tape. And
it started with Ripley and Aliens, I think.
Yeah. So he's a MacGyver in this world, and he really kind of has to. There's what he knows and then what he can learn, and the ability to kind of make things out of what's around the world. The ability to turn an airbag into a bomb and combine disposed electronics as proximity mines are all tools he learns just to kind of stitch these things together really quick and use them as tools against the horde and against other enemies.
And down in the theater demo today, there's an extended version of what you saw last night.
Awesome.
That has alternate paths, and it shows a lot of that. And it's what we're calling it is brutal sandbox combat. Because what you can do is like Jeff was saying, it's like what the player wants to do, we try to empower that. So, when you're fighting the horde, there's just, you can, depending on what you bring into that encounter, you can take them on almost any way you want.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I did notice, and maybe it's just me, and I'm kind of extrapolating a little bit about the freakers that you mentioned earlier. They're still technically alive, so they're not the undead.
No, yeah, they are alive.
They are alive. So, is this a game where headshots are necessary to take down one of these freakers? I mean, that's a classic sort of zombie trope. It looked to me like maybe that wasn't the case here, but I might be wrong.
No, see, it's not about because they're living creatures.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the terms that Jeff coined is the freakosystem. Because if the player were to just kind of wander around and just use stealth and kind of watch them, you'll see swarmers attacking the newts, right? So you have this, they're interacting with each other because they're trying to stay alive too. They're trying to eat, they're trying to drink, they're trying to stake out territory or whatever. So yeah, you could take a headshot, certainly, but if you shoot them in the heart, they'll die just as quickly.
That's fascinating. That's a really interesting take on that. And I mean, clearly you guys have a very different vision compared to whether it's The Walking Dead or something like that. But I'm curious, zombie culture is really big. I'm curious what it is about themes like some of the ones that we see here in Days Gone. What make those so appealing to so many people over such a long period of time?
Oh, to me, I think it begins with just some latent fears we all have about our own future. The way that we're draining resources. I think for me personally, when Katrina hit, I realized, oh man, we're all alone out there.
Yeah.
Like when shit goes down, we got a government infrastructure, but it's probably not for us. It's probably for some people, and so I personally trace kind of the outbreak of the zombie genre kind of to that era, and I think nobody can put their finger on it, but it's just, I think we all realize we're alone, and we have to learn how to make do for ourselves and look out for ourselves and our friends and our families, because nobody else is going to do it. And that's how Deacon and the few survivors survived, is they didn't wait for the government to come rescue them. They did it themselves. And everybody else who went to government checkpoints, they probably died.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a smart move.
And I think the most powerful experiences, whether it's film or games, is all about conflict. And there's nothing more hazardous and dangerous in a world that's literally filled with things that want to kill you. And so I think that kind of builds drama into any situation.
Yeah,
if you're facing that.
Yeah, I would never want to face that. That is terrifying. And again, it's such a fresh array of features that you guys are bringing to some concepts that we've seen before, but now we're seeing them from a very different perspective. Really excited about Days Gone. I know you guys are still deep in development on this one. Are you flirting with a release time frame at all? Do you have any idea when this game's coming out?
Yeah, we have some vague, we're not talking about that right now, but one of the things that we really love about being part of Sony is that they really want the game to be awesome. So like we said, we've been working on this game for over 3 years, and it just allows us time to develop every part of it, the character and the and the world and the setting, and it's just been really awesome to have the time to make the best game we can.
Guys, I appreciate it so much. Thank you for coming by PlayStation Livecast. Really, game's looking fantastic.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, absolutely one of my standouts of the show.